Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to a new session of MAP Health and Wellness Committee. I hope everyone is doing well and keeping safe and getting used to of this new normal. As all of you know that October is the domestic awareness month, National Domestic Awareness Month in the United States. And we did our part one with Sister Ambreen Ahmed from Faith Social Services 2 weeks ago. And this session is in continuation with the last part. Sister Ambreen Ahmed, my dear guest, is joining me today. She will go over some facts and some figures of the numbers of domestic violence in United States and what as a community and as a society, what can be done to prevent it. She will also be sharing some facts on the effect of domestic violence on a child development and it's at a young age and on their brain. So Sister Ambreen, Assalamu alaikum. I welcome you again. It was really nice having you last time as well. Although this is a very touchy topic for a lot of us, it's very sensitive and it's a preventable health problem. And I wish like everyone gets some awareness, get some knowledge of it and play a part on of stopping this and making communities healthy and peaceful. So Sister Amreen, Assalamu alaikum once again, and please start. Yeah.
Wa alaikum assalam, and thank you, Asma, and thank you, Darunur, for doing this outreach to the community and really working on the development of the community, because the kids, our children, are our future and they are our community. So, inshallah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Children in the Islamic tradition are looked upon with love and affection. They are considered a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When a man and a woman get married, they have in the back of their mind that they will have children and live happily ever after. Taking care of one another and oneself and the spouse starts before the wife gets pregnant, continues during pregnancy and onwards. This care of physical, emotional, and spiritual self is for both the husband and the wife. It affects the development of the fetus and the developing brain of the child. Now, it's very important to understand that when a child is in the fetus, the emotions of the mother and what is ever happening in the environment and sounds that are going to the fetus are really affecting the developing child and the developing brain. And so I did some research, and from the Islamic human rights of a child are protection, and this is Islamic human rights. And I'm using child because they are part of human beings, and they are human beings, hopefully. Protection of life and security, protection of reason, protection of honor, protection of religion, protection of wealth. So it is so important, and these are human rights. Everybody has a right to these things. And when we see that when a child is growing, it's so important to provide security for the child, to grow up into a healthy, contributing citizen of the world. And if you want to do more research to understand these Islamic human rights in detail, please go to whyislam.org. When these human rights are missing, then the following types of abuse happen: physical, emotional, economic, sexual, use of children as pawns, use of male privilege, intimidation, and spiritual abuse. So the concept of that the human rights are there because we are answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all the children are a trust to us. They are a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to us, and we have to provide them with these kinds of securities. And if those securities are not there by choice, then that is an abuse. And even if something is happening without a choice, then also that is an abuse, because it is affecting the developing brain of the child and the developing body of the child. And to understand what happens to a child's developing brain when it is exposed to abuse, I selected a video, and let's watch this video.
Because of the way the brain works, you will always remember your very first roller coaster ride. Storing these new experiences is one of the brain's main jobs. In fact, your brain creates a mental blueprint of every new experience you have. A blueprint for any new touch is stored in one part of the brain. A blueprint for any new sound in a different part. And a blueprint for any new sight in still another part. But as powerful as that first roller coaster ride was, it can't compete with the lingering effects of your brain's earliest experiences. Although you have no conscious memory of this part of your childhood, it is these very first experiences that literally become the building blocks for your whole life.
Unlike other organs, the brain is undeveloped at birth, and it is waiting for experiences to shape how it will develop. The amazing thing about the human brain is that the younger you are, the more sponge-like your brain is, which is the reason that children in 3 years can learn language, can learn to walk, can do all kinds of incredible things. But the very same biological sponginess that allows us to rapidly acquire language is also the same sponginess that makes young children more vulnerable to trauma than older children.
We have the opportunity to do police ride-alongs to a domestic violence situation. And so this was actually the first call I ever rode along. It was dinner time, and they were having spaghetti for dinner. It was dripping down the walls. The kitchen table was overturned, and we had 3 children in the household. Looking at this whole situation at the time, we said, no evidence of physical harm. The kids are fine. We learned differently, of course. The boy in the corner was classic behavior that we see with kids who have had chronic exposure to violence. He would just completely zone out, numb out as things started to get scary. The 6-year-old little girl on the chair blames herself for what's going on. But actually, it was 4 years later that we really appreciated who had some of the most profound or severe harm coming out of this situation. And that was the 6-month-old baby, who was now 4.5 and had seriously injured another child in preschool.
It's literally the opposite of the way most people think about this. Most people think young children, they don't really understand what's going on and they're resilient. But the fact is, if anybody's impacted more severely, it's the younger child.
The brain is put together like building blocks in a sense. Those first blocks that go together are the more primitive area, the survival brain.
The brain develops from the bottom to the top and from the inside out, so that the normal development of the top part of the brain depends upon healthy development of lower parts of the brain. The top part of the brain, where you do all of your thinking, is the part of the brain that is most changeable, easiest to modify. But unfortunately, if a child has developmental experiences of threat and exposure to domestic violence, the lower parts of the brain will be impacted and they're harder to change as they get older.
He was never physically abusive, but he was verbally abusive. There was lots and lots of screaming in front of the kids, berating, putting me down, and they pretty much heard it all.
Children exposed to domestic violence, children who witness their parents fighting, literally are experiencing a state of fear. And when this happens, the systems in your brain that are involved in thinking at the top part of your brain are literally shut down. It changes the brains of these children.
My son has seen and heard a lot of the violent outbursts. He was experiencing night terrors, and that was probably his way of dealing with it, because in his waking state, he didn't know how to articulate at 2.5 years old. So it was coming through, when he was asleep.
When kids are chronically stressed, one of the problems that we see is difficulty in attachment and bonding, because they're so focused on survival. It's hard for them to reach out and connect with others. My oldest boy went through a stage where he would bully his younger brother and seemingly laugh in glee. He was not remorseful or had no empathy that he could actually make someone cry. Many phone calls of him being disruptive in the classroom. He was a very bright kid, but that's when I knew that he was heading toward trouble. A lot of these kids get labeled as being, bad, difficult, defiant. This is a very natural response to their circumstance. What the child is doing is a survival strategy for them, but it creates behaviors that are very difficult in the classroom. When they're in a crisis mode, they can't learn.
The tragic reality of children growing up in domestic violence is that they end up with mental health problems at a rate higher than children who are actually the direct victims of physical abuse.
My mother was a victim of domestic violence. My father was an alcoholic, a drug user, and it's just a cocktail for a bad living environment for children. My brother, he looked like he was crying on his way home. Me not knowing, I was just a careless little 6-year-old, seeing him climb up to my mom's medicine cabinet. I asked him what he was doing, and he boldly said, I'm killing myself. 8-year-olds don't talk like that. The first person I got the call was my best friend's mom. By the time she came down to our apartment, he had a butcher knife in his hand, just cutting himself all over his body. I was just bawling, just crying. There's nothing I could do to help. My brother was crying. He didn't want to be there. He was trying to run out. But I had already known that my home, wasn't my home. It wasn't a place where I felt safe.
Childhood exposure to violence is about living in a threatening, scary environment that may escalate to physical violence, but it often doesn't have to. It's the chaos, the uncertainty, the fear of being in a home where things aren't okay. Very interesting talking about the roller coaster, because that's what we hear from adult survivors who are in violent households, and also the children. The hard part for them, I think, is thinking about what is normal instead of this up and down life of being in a violent, threatening relationship.
Growing up in my home, there were 6 children. My mother and father, unfortunately, fought like cats and dogs. As a result of that, 2 of my brothers ended up being batterers. I have 2 sisters. Even today, they date men that batter them.
Exposure to violence is a lifetime legacy. We see that adults who have had negative childhood experiences often have coping behaviors that can be unhealthy. That certainly has huge effects on how one is going to parent.
It's really important for parents to understand that their internal state, whether it's calm or whether it's alert engagement or whether it's frustration and anger, whether it's sadness, depression, the baby absorbs these internal states.
So this is something that is a scientific, research that was done, and then this video was made, and people are psychologists are still doing a lot of research on this. So and I have put all these points for you from the video, that parents are the first teachers of the child. Parents' internal states are absorbed by the baby. The child's brain is a sponge ready to absorb. What are we teaching our children? develop self-worth in children. If home is not a safe place, then their security is damaged, their self-esteem gets damaged, and they feel threatened. Children understand everything going on around them. They develop attachment problems, classroom difficulty, mental health problems, susceptibility to suicide. They are not able to grow emotionally, meaning a person might be 20 years old and their emotional self is maybe 10 years old. They feel like they are on a roller coaster. They are not able to control their emotions. So they feel out of control, like they're on the roller coaster. They cannot trust people. There's a legacy we are passing on to our children. You see, when how we are treated is how we treat our children, and how we treat our children, they treat their children. So it's a legacy that we are passing on from generation to generation. The child learns from their parents how to deal with stress. So if the parent has good skills, good techniques of dealing with stress, that parent will pass it on to their children. Otherwise, it becomes very hard for them to control their stress. They break stuff. They are, they become troublemakers in school, and a lot of other things happen, which are because of they are not able to control or manage their stress. Teach children to talk about their feelings. What are you feeling? Yes, somebody took your toy and they broke it. What do you feel? How do you feel? Are you angry? Was it your favorite toy? Like for them to express what they are feeling. Tell your child, you are not at fault. So if something is happening around them and they are feeling that it is because of them, that this happened, that mom and dad are fighting, so the child is feeling responsible. So let them know that they are not responsible. They are not at fault for this fight between mom and dad or any other stuff, stressful stuff going on in their home. A child needs a support system. So when a child is growing up, and since, I'm from Pakistan, so when I was growing up, I had my uncles and aunts from both sides, my grandparents, and my siblings. My parents had a lot of support system, and so did I, because I could, if I felt uncomfortable discussing something with my parents, with my father and mother, I would go to maybe my uncle or aunt or my grandparents and discuss that with them. Sometimes when I felt my parents were being too strict with me, I would go and talk to my uncle and get him on my side. And he would come and talk to my parents. So, there's a support system for the children and for the parents. But since we migrated from our native country to here, that support system is left behind. So the situation has become more difficult for the parents and the children. And that's where the community comes in. That's where the friends and other, if there are any family members come in. After trauma, a brain has the capacity to heal. A child needs to be in contact with healthy adults. That's where the community comes in. That's where the community support, the masjid, the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all these healthy adults who are teaching them good habits, and they come in. Tell a child that they are special and can be someone. Look, give them hope, give them that they are the stars and they can reach the stars. So this is so important for the children to feel special. Parents show and teach their children what is normal. So if the parents show them in the home between mom and dad, and maybe between parents and children, if they show them that they are loved, then that is normal. If the parents are showing them, you did this wrong, you are very bad, you shouldn't do this, there is no love and support and caring, then that's what the child is learning as normal. If there is abuse in home, that is becoming normal for the child. So that's what the child is going to accept as normal and then go with it as normal in their life. Give children alternative care. The brain of a child will become what it is supposed to. So there, and I would share some cases with you from faith, that there were, when the mom left the home and she went through a lot of struggle and not much support, the child went through poverty, lack of care, lack of nurturing, and very difficult time. So some of these kids, when they became teenagers, they left Islam. They became atheists. Some of them are in gangs, and they are participating with other criminal activity. There are some who are younger, 10 and under, who are still in, following mom and following the rules set for them. In teenage, the children become, they start showing aggression and start following what others are offering to them outside the home. So it becomes very difficult if we do not have good connection with our children, good ties with our children, and they know and understand that we love them and we care about them, then mostly in teenage, children develop habits which are marginalized, which are not good habits. So I have seen a lot in domestic violence clients, children, what they go through, and it's because they are lacking those human rights which are not there for them. So please take care of your spouse and children. I will leave you with this this hadith. Actually, I forgot the hadith here, but your children are your treasures for this life and next. When you are dead, your children are your sadqa jariyah. Be mindful of your dunya and your akhirah, because it is very important. Life is not finishing in this world, but we are going to the next world with the treasure of our children left behind. So inshallah, if you have any questions, Asma, I'm
Thank you so much, Sister Umbreen. It was a really powerful and a strong message. I hope everyone who's watching gets the insight of the houses, because as you said, the house is supposed to be a peaceful place for the family, for the kids growing up. And if the kid or a wife or a husband or like anyone does not feel safe in the house, then that will end up in a lot of mental and other problems, like ongoing problems in their lives. So Sister Ambreen, just a quick question that just popped up is that what will be your advice for a couple who think that they have some kind of abusive relationship, and if they're seeking help, so what will be, where do they start? They feel like they need to start somewhere, so where do they start? Do they need to talk to imam of a mosque first? They need to go to a counselor first? How do they start getting better?
Um, there are many avenues. And what you just said is Imam's office. And Imam's office is maybe the first place. And it also depends the nature of the abuse, the level of abuse. If it is a verbal abuse and it has been, the parties are willing to seek help, and then maybe counseling, individual counseling, and after individual counseling, maybe marriage counseling, and it can go on. But once there is um, physical violence can escalate to lethality, to where there can be a murder and murder-suicide. And in those cases, it's best to report the violence to the police and ask for help, because it doesn't mean that once the violence is reported to the police, the marriage is finished. No. And even if there is a protective order in place, the marriage is not finished. There can be some services provided through the county to help this couple. Maybe a batter's intervention program, maybe mental evaluation, other kinds of services. So it is very important to solve the problem, not to live with it. Because when you are living with the problem is not ending or finishing, it is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. And what we saw in that video is it's not only you which is being harmed, it's your generations. You are teaching your children, and those children will teach their children, and it's about your grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and we don't know how far this will go. So it is best to take a stand, and as a community to take a stand and say, we refuse to have behaviors like this. Once we take care of our homes, our community is not a problem. Our nation is not a problem. It is us. And when we talk about, take jihad bil nafs, it is jihad, the struggle against your nafs is the highest jihad. If you conquer yourself, you conquer the world. So it is so important to look and reflect on what we are doing, where we are going, where do we want to be? Where do we want our children to be?
Thank you so much, Sister Ambreen. This was such a deep and touching answer and very elaborate answer to the advice. And thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for watching us today. I hope everyone stays safe. And as Sister Ambreen said, that peaceful homes will make peaceful communities, and everyone has to do their part. We need to start from our homes to build a better community and a better state, and of course, a better dunya, inshallah. What we can do is start respecting each other. And once we start reflecting on ourselves, as she said, jihad bin nafs, control our emotions, control our anger, everything will fall into place. And inshallah, we all can work together towards peaceful homes and peaceful communities. Once again, Sister Amreen, it was an honor having you with me in Darun Noor community. I hope everyone who watched it will benefit from this talk and work within themselves, within their homes. And Sister Ambreen, one more thing before we leave is that, do you want to give us any advice that in a community, if we feel like someone in our community is going through some rough times or violence in their homes, how do we approach them? Do we approach them ourselves, or do we report it again to an imam to approach that family?
Actually, it is on your comfort level. If you feel that it is too hard for you to communicate, or the person will, you're not close to the person or something like that, then it is best to maybe report to the imam. And but for yourself, if you see something happening, if there are children, become a good model for them. Maybe in that video, if you watch it, the first impressions, it is about that boy who was being abused and who saw abuse, was in contact with these neighbors who were very good people. They had strong family ties and they were good people. And that family affected this boy. And he is now in that field. He is a counselor. He's a advocate against domestic violence. So the children, you can affect the children. You can you can rescue them. And you can also, if there is a woman who needs help financially to support herself and her children, the whole community can come together and provide her with that. The Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, we have so much in our community. And our community is full of talent and full of generous hearts. So, it's not a problem, but we need that focus that we are going to develop our community. If we look at, this is something that is very heartbreaking, but if we look at Spain, there are big mosques there, beautiful, beautiful mosques. But where are the Muslims? We have to focus on this community, on these people, on the needs of the people, and make each home a secure and free of abuse, and raise these amazing, amazing young children, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, Sister Ambreen. I will end here with this strong message. I don't want to add anything after what you have said. Inshallah, I hope everyone can benefit from this program. I will be back again, inshallah, in 2 weeks, same time. And until then, take care of yourself and stay safe.
You too.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.